when a wounded human mercenary crashes on a remote outpost, populated by young alien cadets, the galaxy's most feared predators make a fatal miscalculation. They assume the injured prey is helpless. They assume the younglings are weak. They assume wrong. What follows is a brutal lesson in why humans earned their reputation as the galaxy's most terrifying species, and why those who protect them are even worse. This is a story of blood, vengeance, and the cosmic mistake of underestimating Earth's children. The observation deck of Station Ketrel 9 smelled like recycled air and fear, though the fear part was new. Instructor Vornath clicked his mandibles, in what passed for amusement among the Qualaxian species, watching his charges press their various appendages, faces, and sensor organs against the reinforced viewports. 15 younglings, all between 8 and 12 solar cycles old, representing 7 different species. A diplomatic gesture, they called it. A babysitting nightmare, he called it. Instructor, chirped Mira, a small Teverin, with golden fur that hadn't yet grown its adult ridge patterns. Why is that ship flying so badly? Vornath's 3 eyes focused on the vessel in question. The youngling was right. The craft was wobbling through space like a drunk Horthian after festival night, trailing vapor and what looked suspiciously like vital fluids from its hull. Probably damaged, he muttered, already reaching for the communication panel. Stay back from the windows, all of you. The ship didn't request docking permission. It didn't hail them. It simply slammed into the emergency port with all the grace of a meteor strike, and the station shuddered like someone had kicked it in the infrastructure. Alarms started screaming. The younglings started screaming. Vornath started reconsidering his career choices. By the time he'd herded his panic-stricken charges into the reinforced classroom, and by the time station security had gotten their various appendages out of their various orifices, the intruder was already inside. Single occupant, crackled Security Chief Wrath over the intercom. Human, male, unconscious, bleeding everywhere. Honestly, it's impressive he made it this far. He's leaving a trail you could follow from the next sector. Human. Vornath felt his mid-thorax tighten. He'd never seen one in person, but everyone knew the stories. Deathworlders, the species that looked at a planet with crushing gravity, deadly fauna, and toxic atmosphere, and called it home. The lunatics who'd somehow clawed their way to the stars, despite having no natural weapons, no armor, no sensible evolutionary advantages whatsoever. The ones who simply refused to die when any sensible species would have the decency to expire. Is he dangerous? Vornath asked, very much aware of the 15 younglings currently under his protection. Hard to say. He's missing about 2 liters of blood, has burns across 40% of his body, and I'm pretty sure that's a piece of shrapnel lodged in his shoulder. Also, he's unconscious. So, probably not immediately dangerous. No. Where is he now? Medical Bay, 3 sections from your location. We've sedated him. Or, well, we tried to sedate him. Used enough tranquilizer to drop a Korthax battle beast. He's still twitching. Vornath made the clicking sound that meant he was calculating terrible odds. Seal the sector. I have younglings here. Already done. Just sit tight. We're figuring out what to do with him. What they should have done was pay attention to the other ship. The one that had followed the humans' dying craft through 3-star systems, patient as cancer. The one that now docked with considerably more grace at Port 7. The Krail were hunters, not the honorable kind. Not the kind that tested themselves against worthy prey. They were the kind that shot you in the back, took your cargo and sold your organs to the highest bidder. 6 of them boarded the station with weapons already charged, and that special kind of swagger that comes from never having met anything they couldn't kill. Their leader, a scarred brute named Thex, accessed the station manifest with a hacking module that was definitely illegal in 9 systems. His lipless mouth stretched into something approximating a grin. 1 human, he announced to his crew, injured, defenseless, and worth 80,000 credits to the Syndicate, dead or alive. Apparently, this one's been causing problems. Station security met them at the 3rd bulkhead. It didn't go well for station security. Arath managed to hit the panic alarm before a plasma bolt turned his communication console into expensive slag. The message got through, though. Lockdown, intruders, active threat. In the classroom, Vornath heard the alarm, and felt his blood turn cold. He'd been an instructor for 20 cycles. He'd handled illnesses, accidents, and one memorable incident involving a Falxian youngling and the station's entire supply of fermented protein paste. But this was different. Everyone, into the supply closet, now. But instructor, started Pip, a small human child with brown skin and hair that defied gravity in ways that seemed physically improbable. I heard weapons fire. Which is exactly why you're going into the closet, Pip. The younglings filed in with surprising efficiency, except for Kai, a Vrelnari boy, whose species prided themselves on logic. Instructor, that storage space will provide minimal protection against plasma weaponry. The walls are only rated for... I'm aware, Kai. Get in anyway. Through the door, Vornath could hear boots in the corridor. Heavy, confident, getting closer. The Krail kicked open the medical bay first. The human was there, strapped to a table, unconscious, surrounded by monitoring equipment that was beeping in increasingly concerned tones. Blood, thick and impossibly red, stained the white sheets. The X approached, weapon raised, and that's when he made his first mistake. He got cocky, started monologuing. Thought you could run, didn't you, mercenary? Thought you could steal from us and just jump to the next system. Now look at you, pathetic, weak, dying, just like your reputation. The human's eyes opened, not slowly, not groggily, instantly, like someone had flipped a switch. They were blue, cold, calculating. Wasn't running, the human said, his voice rough as grinding metal, was leading. Dex laughed. Leading, you're half dead. You're alone. What exactly were you? The human's hand moved, shouldn't have been possible. The restraints should have held. The tranquilizers should have kept him down. The blood loss alone should have rendered him unconscious. Should have. The Krail pirate died confused, which was probably better than he deserved. The human pulled the shrapnel from his own shoulder with a wet, terrible sound, and demonstrated exactly why sharp objects and soft throats don't mix well. The alarm changed pitch. The station's AI, finally catching up to events, announced in its calm, unhelpful voice, warning, hostile entities detected, lockdown protocols engaged, warning, hostile entities near educational sector, warning. In the supply closet, 15 younglings held their breath. Outside they could hear the Krail searching, door after door, getting closer. Pip whispered, barely audible. Are we going to die? Vornath wanted to lie, wanted to promise safety he couldn't guarantee, but before he could speak, Mira, the small Taverin, with the golden fur, said something that made no sense. No, she whispered, her voice carrying absolute certainty. We're not going to die. He won't let us. Who? Asked Kai. The human. The human is 3 sections away, Vornath hissed, unconscious, dying. Mira's ears flattened. Was. The door to their corridor exploded inward with a percussion that rattled teeth and sensor membranes alike. 2 Krail entered, weapons sweeping the space with professional efficiency that spoke of too many similar raids. They moved like predators because in every system they'd operated in, that's exactly what they were. Top of the food chain. Apex. Untouchable. They'd never operated near Earth before. The first one, a female with cybernetic implants replacing half her face, gestured toward the classroom door. Life signs, multiple, small ones. Her mandibles clicked in what might have been anticipation. Younglings. Her partner, bulkier and meaner, growled his approval. Hostages. Good. Maybe that human will be more cooperative when we start spacing his fellow station inhabitants one at a time. Vornath felt his 3 hearts hammering against his carapace. He positioned himself between the closet door and any potential threat, knowing it was futile, knowing he was vastly outmatched, but doing it anyway because that's what you did when you were responsible for children. The classroom door began to override. The Krail had military-grade hacking tools. It would take them maybe 15 seconds. They got to 12. The corridor behind them filled with a sound that would haunt the survivors for the rest of their considerably shortened lives. Not a roar, not a scream, something worse, something wet and rhythmic and terrible. Footsteps, running, fast. The bulky Krail turned, weapon rising, and got exactly one glimpse of what was coming before it hit him like a cargo freighter at ramming speed. The human shouldn't have been standing. The medical reports later would confirm he'd lost approximately 30% of his blood volume, had burns across his torso that should have rendered him catatonic with pain, had muscle damage that should have made movement agonizing. Should have. He hit the cradle with his bare hands, and those hands were painted red, not with the pirate's blood, his own, dripping from improvised bandages, from wounds still open, from a body that simply refused to acknowledge its own mortality. The fight lasted 4 seconds. It would have been shorter, but the human seemed to be taking his time. The female Kryl fired 3 shots, center mass, kill shots, perfect accuracy. The human kept coming. One arm hung useless. Smoke rose from the new burns. He smiled, and there was nothing human in that expression, nothing sane. "You came to my station," he said, conversationally, as if discussing weather patterns. "Hurt my security people." He grabbed her weapon arm, twisted, and the sound of breaking chitin filled the corridor. Threatened children. The Kryl tried to speak, tried to beg, tried to explain this was just business, just a job, nothing personal. The human's expression suggested he took it very personally indeed. When the corridor went silent, Vornath finally found the courage to open the closet door. His younglings spilled out, and he tried to shield them from the carnage, tried to protect their innocent eyes from the brutal reality of violence. He failed. They saw everything. The human stood among the bodies, swaying slightly, blood pooling at his feet. His chest heaved with each breath, and those cold blue eyes tracked across the younglings with an intensity that made Vornath's survival instinct scream. Then those eyes softened. Marginally. Microscopically. But enough. "Hey kids," the human said, his voice gentler now though still rough. "Sorry about the mess. You okay?" Pip stepped forward, and Vornath made a strangled sound of protest that went ignored. The small human child looked up at the mercenary, tilted her head, and asked with perfect calm, "Are you going to die?" The mercenary, whose name they'd later learn was Marcus Rain, considered the question with appropriate seriousness. "Probably not today. Today's been pretty good, all things considered." "You're bleeding," observed Kai, his logical mind apparently refusing to process the emotional trauma. "Yeah, I do that sometimes. Humans are like mobile blood bags. It's a design flaw." Mira approached next, her golden fur bristling with something that wasn't quite fear. The others, the rest of the pirates. There were 6. Marcus's expression went cold again. Were past tense. "I had a conversation with them about station etiquette. They disagreed. Violently. They lost." "All of them?" Vornath managed to ask. "All of them." The instructor processed this. One human, severely injured, against 6 armed Kryl pirates. That's impossible. Marcus shrugged, then winced because apparently that particular motion involved muscles that were currently not on speaking terms with his nervous system. "Yeah, well, nobody told me. I'm not great with following rules anyway." Station security arrived then, or what was left of it. Wrath, bandaged and limping, took one look at the scene and made a sound like air escaping from a pressure valve. "By the ancestors, what happened here?" "Pest control," Marcus said pleasantly. "You've got a Kryl infestation." Had past tense again. "I'm good with past tense today." Medical teams swarmed him then, and Marcus let them, though he kept his eyes on the younglings until they were ushered away. As the medics worked, muttering in 7 languages about human stubbornness and Deathworlder physiology, one of them asked the obvious question. "Why? You could have hidden, could have escaped. Why fight when you were barely alive?" Marcus looked at him like he'd asked why water was wet. "There were kids here." So that's all the reason I need. You threaten kids, you forfeit your right to keep breathing my air. Simple math." The medic, a Qualaxian named Tresh, thought about this. Thought about the human concept of simple math. Thought about how this equation apparently equaled 6 dead pirates, and 1 barely conscious human who'd somehow won anyway. "Your species is insane," Tresh concluded. "Yeah," Marcus agreed, his eyes finally starting to close as the medical interventions took hold. "But we're your kind of insane." Later, much later, After the station had been secured and the younglings debriefed and their parents contacted, and several diplomatic incidents narrowly avoided, Instructor Vornath found himself in the observation deck again. Pip was there too, looking out at the stars with that peculiar human intensity. "Instructor," she said quietly, "the other kids, the non-human ones, they're scared of Marcus now." "That's understandable, Pip. He's quite frightening. But I'm not scared." "Also understandable. He's your species." "That's not why." Pip turned to face him, and her young face held wisdom that made Vornath uncomfortable. "I'm not scared because I finally understand what we are, what humans are. Everyone in the galaxy thinks we're crazy, reckless, too emotional, too violent." "Yes," Vornath admitted carefully. "But that's not it. We're not crazy. We're just protective. Shares touch our people, threaten our kids, hurt our friends, and we stop being the friendly traitors and diplomats and scientists. We become something else, something that doesn't stop, doesn't quit, doesn't forgive." She looked back at the stars and her voice carried the weight of her entire species when she spoke again. "The Krail thought Marcus was prey, thought we were all prey. They didn't understand that humans don't have a prey response. We have a threat response, and when you trigger it, especially around our young, around anyone's young, you don't get a fight. You get removed, permanently, efficiently, without mercy." Vornath clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. "That's quite an observation for someone your age." Marcus made it clear. When he kept fighting with holes in him, when he killed 6 armed pirates with his bare hands, when he smiled at us afterward like everything was fine. She paused. "The galaxy needs to understand something, Instructor." "What's that?" "Humans are friendly. Humans are kind. Humans will be your best friends and your most loyal allies. But the exact same traits that make us good friends make us absolutely terrible enemies. And if you hurt a child, anywhere near a human, you're going to learn the difference between a species that evolved as prey and a species that evolved by refusing to be eaten." Vornath considered this. Considered Marcus Rain currently in Medical Bay, already arguing with doctors about discharge times. Considered the 15 younglings he'd almost lost. Considered how many Krail pirates would think twice before attacking a station with human presence. "You know what Mira said?" he asked. "When the Krail were breaking down our door?" "What?" "She said the human wouldn't let us die." Said it with absolute certainty. "How did she know?" Pip smiled. And it was a human smile, warm and slightly sad, because she understood before the rest of us did.
"Humans don't abandon their packs."
"And once you're in our pack, once we've decided you're worth protecting, nothing in this galaxy will stop us. Not injury, not odds, not common sense, not even death, if we can help it." She turned away from the window. "The cubs watched him bleed, Instructor. We watched him nearly die, and then we watched him win anyway. Because whoever hurt him, whoever threatened us, they made a fundamental error in judgment." "What error?" "They forgot what we are. They saw injured prey. They should have seen wounded predators, and predators, especially human ones, are most dangerous when you think they're beaten." Vornath watched the youngling walk away, and for the first time since humans had joined the galactic community, he truly understood why the older species whispered warnings about Earth. Not because humans were violent. Every species could be violent. Because humans were violent with purpose, with protection, with a bone-deep conviction that their people, all their people, mattered more than their own survival. In the medical bay, Marcus Rain finally passed out, his body demanding rest his will had denied it for hours. The medical staff worked around him, marveling at his physiology, his pain tolerance, his sheer stubborn refusal to die. And on 15 different worlds, 15 sets of parents received messages that their younglings were safe, that pirates had attacked, that a human had saved them. And every single one of those parents, regardless of species, said the same thing. Thank the ancestors there was a human there. The galaxy was learning, slowly, painfully, one incident at a time. You could be humanity's friend. You could be humanity's enemy, if you were stupid enough. But if you threatened their children, or anyone else's children for that matter, you weren't an enemy anymore. You were already dead. You just hadn't stopped moving yet. That was the human way. and the galaxy was finally starting to understand why you didn't mess with Deathworlders who decided you needed removing.